Guys, welcome to episode 20 of the Ancient Intelligent Files. Time goes by very quick, doesn't it? Especially at this age. But guys, what you're looking at is a rendition, an old drawing of the Ark of the Covenant up on a hill. And they've even just removed it from the temple or about to take it down into the temple. You can see the fenced-in area here, and then the temple compound here, or the temple structure, excuse me. And guys, if you're an electrician or electrical engineer or worked in the industry, you should automatically recognize this system right here. What these are bronze and copper pillars. There are 60 of them. They're connected at the top by silver chains and cables, the number one conductor. And when the ark is put inside this temple, the Bible tells you, don't come near, you'll die. There's a reason for that. All of these are grounding nodes. Any energy that this ark puts out, which is devastating, if it's not handled the right way and controlled by the selected people. And just by using your eyes and your common sense, guys, there was nothing magical that happened in the Old Testament. People say supernatural, but that means more natural. Our Father works within his nature. That's because he created it, he controls it, and he loves his creations, you and I, and everything else he built. But it's a technical device, and it is in a contained field here. Guys, when you have these, now these are bronze copper columns, and they're mounted in bronze bases that are grounded into the earth. And again, this is a perimeter to not only contain the energy from the ark, but to keep people away from it also. But this is a big grounding fence. You look at the description, read it for yourself. Again, big bronze grounding towers, and they're all interconnected via the silver cabling and chains that you see coming from the tops. And it's perfect. And it mentions that they're draped with linen. And in a dry environment like the desert, that is a wave block and an anti-frequency block in itself, and it helps contain it. But again, what we're looking at is either they just left it or just getting ready to bring it back in. And again, you notice this priest. If you look at it very closely, you can see that he's wearing the 12 jewels. And they represent the 12 tribes, but it goes much, much deeper than that. And you got 12 different jewels, different colors, and they're crystals. Now we talked about crystals in modern technology. We talked about them going back all the way to the Sumerians. And this is in that chain of events. These breastplates of the Levitical priesthood had a very special electromechanical meaning. First of all, if you look at the full description of them, and this is one of the more accurate descriptions, a lot of times you'll see a big golden breastplate with the embedded stones, but guys, if you read it, they wove different fibers together, and like yarns, to make the basic wrap that you see here, or the basic breastplate, and then they were interwoven, or the jewels, the 12 different ones, were interwoven into that. And the way they were interwoven, guys, they're plated, not plated, but they're mounted in a little gold thing like you would a diamond ring or something. But inside of all this yarn you're looking at, the different colors, the different patterns, they took and formed gold into really flat sheets and then cut it into fiber-sized thread and wove it all through this, interconnecting the crystals via the gold brackets that they're in, and into the entire vest. In other words, electrically connecting it. Now notice the gold chains going to these plates up here. Guys, what this guy is wearing, whether you believe it now or not, you'll see one day, he's wearing a protective suit that's grounded. Gold is a very good conductor, and these plates here were onyx. Anyway, the entire wardrobe under all of this was a layer of pure dry wool, which is one of the best insulators there are, and it was highly available in that time. Also, it was an apron. If you look at it from a little wider view, which we will, there was a full apron that went to the ground, and at the bottom were, I don't know if they were gold or not, could have been copper or brass, but there were bells right at the very bottom next to the ground. And they could there was a couple reasons for that. If this priest went into the temple and he wasn't set up right, he wasn't going to come out alive. And if those bells quit ringing, they knew they had a problem. Another thing is that they drug so close to the ground, they were discharged for the electricity that this shield or this suit was using. Also on their heads was a metal plate. They were having to suit up to go into the temple. The same, because you saw the electrical fencing and the grounding network, they had to. Now that's simple elementary electronics. Just like you would have to wear some type of shielding for any type, EMF or whatever. There was so much energy, they had to do this to approach the ark, which it contained ancient information, ancient intelligence. They say it had Moses' tablets in there. How were they carved? We're going to get into that. Now, let me back this out just a moment. Now, this is just another image, guys, of pretty close depiction. Again, not a brass or a golden shield, but a woven mat with gold fiber in it for connectivity, with the names of each tribe etched in the different crystals. So they call them jewels, whatever. They were crystals. And they were not chiseled because they would not have been able to handle the pressure. If you read in the Old Testament, they look at it closely, they used a special type of ink. Then after that ink was dried, and they would draw out the Hebrew letters of each tribe. Now these letters are very interesting in just themselves. But then they would pass over, I think it was called a shamar, would pass it over these jewels after they were, again, not etched with the ink, but they were drawn on with a special ink. But the shamar would activate that ink and it would etch itself into these stones. It's in the Bible. Same way they say that the emerald tablets were made. But we're talking about the Levitical priesthood. Now, what is so interesting about this is the Hebrew letters. There's only 22. We've talked about the Hebrew language and the translations and all that quite a bit. But what they're finding out now, different scientific people that look at this have realized that these are not letters like we have in our alphabet or many other nations. These are coded symbols. And if you etch them into a crystal, that is embedded in it. In other words, just like we talked about the ancient intelligence being etched like a CD player into crystals. The University of Chicago's doing it now. And they find the imperfections in these rocks and in those cracks are in these stones and crystals. And they embed digital coding, ones and zeros. Now, each of these letters on these different tribe stones is a different electrical frequency. It's called a waveguide. If you've ever put together some of the big satellites, I used to do them by the hundreds, you have a waveguide. But anyway, when you etch into these, you don't destroy them. And the Bible says there was no dust or particles or anything else. There wasn't, because when they pass that shamar, it's like a wand, electronic wand, you pass over that ink to activate it. They do that in other technologies like circuit boards and all too. But anyway, when you approach the ark, you better be fully suited, first of all. And one of these stones better match your DNA. That's how deep it goes. In other words, if you were from whichever tribe it is, you approached the ark, it read that etched coding, and that etched coding came from your information. They knew what they were doing when they were etching these symbols. Guys, these 22 symbols, they're not magic, but they are a code. And it's a digital code that can be repeated. Now they're finding out. So it would identify who you were when you approached. And you better have the right combination. And it would, if you read the Bible, it would make that particular stone of that tribe glow. It was almost a quantum entanglement between the energy in the ark and the Levitical priesthood. Also, guys, I found out that there was another reason for identifying, but this would transfer information too. In other words, if you approached, you were from the right tribe, you passed the scan, then information could be transferred also to you. And the reply would be with the lighting of the stones. Anyway, what they're finding out, they were concerned about fallen angel tech. They were concerned about DNA manipulation, inbreeding, giants, the whole thing, guys. And this would indicate if someone was not of one of these tribes, or if they had been mixed, or DNA changed, or manipulated, or crossbred, or whatever you want to call it, it would immediately let them know that you were not one of the original 12 tribe members. You were hybrid. You were not allowed to enter. These were digitally etched devices. Crystals can read memory, they can release it, and they can accept it. And I've mentioned before that the scientists have been saying that it will last for 10 million years, but the newer information now is saying over 1 billion years. That's why it's ancient intelligence. Now, you've got to look at the power that's in that ark. And we've seen for thousands of years, almost every military and expedition on the planet look for that ark. But why? Because of the energy stored inside it. Remember, 2 invading countries returned it. They didn't know how to handle it. And then as it was going to slip into the water one day, one of the priesthood grabbed it, and it killed him. I guess he couldn't hold on to the wooden handle as they were sliding. But this ark had powers. If you read, they were crossing a small river, and the energy from the ark, now you had to be shielded up to carry it. You were too close. But it stopped that river till they passed. This energy field. That's how powerful it was. What did they do at Jericho? They marched around it. They used the vibration not only of their crystals, but they actually matched the vibrational frequency of the construction and the materials of the Jericho wall. And when you match it, guys, it will almost dissolve something. Anyway, it makes it real acceptable to loud noise like the trumpets, walking around it, and then the final shout, the final cascade on that last day, and those walls come tumbling down. It was all tied into the ark. That ark marched around this place. It was an analysis. Once a day, wasn't it, for 6 days or something? Then that 7th day, they let it all out. Everything had been analyzed. The ark data was transferred to the priesthood with what you're looking at right now. They knew now how to do it. Ancient intelligence was taking over and telling them the path of destroying the enemy. And that's what they did. And so through the sonic vibrations and the energy of the ark, they tore it down. And that was part of taking back territory. It wasn't invading, it was taking it back. And just a little bit of inside information, guys, to me, one of the favorite things about the Old Testament is that how technical it really was, how advanced the technology was. And when you hear it in a technical aspect, especially when we get into Moses coming down off that mountain, then you'll see it from a different aspect. It's all technical because God doesn't do magic. But Numbers 151, it said, again, the outsider who comes near shall be put to death. If an unauthorized person walked up to that fence and touched the wrong component even, they would complete the circuit between the charged internal atmosphere inside that big fence and the earth-grounded bronze bases. They would be instantly, basically tased to death, acting as a human fuse, just like Uzzah did when he grabbed the ark. So it was a no-go zone. Remember, the two armies that returned it, they were suffering from all kind of diseases, looked like radiation sickness. Now, if you think about why, again, the armies for thousands of years, the investigators have looked for this ark, now you're understanding. It had the most incredible military, or it would become the most powerful military asset on the planet. That's how those people work. The tabernacle wasn't a church layout. We saw the fencing. It was a highly sophisticated gold-lined resonant microwave cavity. This is how it's described. You look at it, you'll understand it. Surrounded by a multi-point, silver-linked, bronze-grounded electric fence designed to safely run a planet-scale communication terminal. The communication would be through some type of quantum entanglement via those crystals. And what does that tell you? It's faster than the speed of light, because when two particles, and they say it can't happen except on a micro scale, that's because they're dealing with very low human type energy. When you're dealing something like that, the entanglement could be very large. And guys, that courtyard there you saw was pretty big, wasn't it? And you saw, and look, not only that, you saw the temple. Now that temple was lined with gold. What that is the same way you do a microprocessing unit. And you build it just like they're doing the data centers in the desert because of the dry humidity. But they, that was their normal thing anyway. So you've got a completely sealed room that the tabernacle's stored in. Even then, when it's in there and the priests enter, if they make it back out, it's all insulated in there and they are shielded. But those gold-lined walls of the temple, those are shielding. That's shielding. It's basic electronics. And we'll stay here just a minute longer, guys, but just to clarify again, if you're an electronics person or understand this, then if someone's asking you questions about it, maybe it will help you explain it to them. But this bonding wire, that silver fillet rod, they call it, went around all 60 of those ground rods, the big these were not stone pillars. They were large copper and bronze grounding rods. And guys, if you're dealing with that much energy, it's got to be grounded, or you're going to fry some stuff. The EMF field is going to go crazy. And if it happened there, then it would have fried every one of those priests, even with their breastplates on, inside that yard, inside that encampment, that tabernacle fence. Again, if the ark fired a massive static discharge, which happens with any type of machinery, it can if it's not grounded, and it hit only one side of the courtyard fence, that's why they're all touched together. An unbounded or unbonded system, guys, would create a lethal ground loop across the camp. Again, frying the priest standing in the middle of it. But I think only one at a time went inside the main building. And you better be shielded up good to do that. But the ancient designers solved this by running connecting rods made of pure silver to bond all 60 bronze ground points together. That's exactly what they did. And I know for a fact, guys, I've shown you pictures of my solar panels out front. I built some metal frames that they are on. Anyway, each one of those frames are grounded to a rod out there, 8-foot ground rod. Tie them all together to a grounding bus bar, and then drop them into that 8-foot copper rod in the ground. Now I have another one at the bottom of my box outside, the 200 amp main box where your lines come in. But because of what they're talking about here, guys, I also have connected both ground rods, because one can build up an unbalanced charge and fry some stuff pretty quickly. So you got, again, you're grounding at the areas But those bars, those ground rods have to be connected in order for everything to be safe and work proper. It's called bonding. A lot of you understand. So what you're seeing is a 60 ground rod bonding with the silver fillet rods, is what they're calling it. You've got your copper and bronze ground rods, and then the silver, which is zero resistance just about. That is, it formed a perfect zero resistance connection across the entire perimeter. And the guys, you're probably tired of it, but I probably have mentioned Skinwalker Ranch in every video, knowing me. But I mentioned that they're building these two, or they already have built them, the two big copper, bronze, stainless steel in this case, grounding rods. And what they're going to try to do is basically contain and control that energy in the mesa. But that's not going to work out because man is not advanced enough to even scratch it, much less control it. But anyway, it's the same thing, trying to control the energy within that area, trying to control the ground, the GPS, all of that. Same ground. So we're seeing technology going, it's still the same, in other words, from thousands of years ago to now. Same things matter when you're dealing with a high energy system. And the mystery of the ancient world is hiding in plain sight. It was never magic. The beings who built the pyramids, the priests who wore the crystal transceivers, and the modern engineers trying to study the anomalies in Utah are all using the exact same manual of bonded heavy metal grounding circuits to navigate the raw energy of the universe. That just about sums it up. And Moses, they didn't beat the ark down in that sense or contain it like that. They survived it, basically what they did, because they followed the blueprint to the letter. Moses was given information. Remember when the tablets came down? You remember that? He was given information, ancient, intelligent information that's still working its way into the network now. They wore the exact gold-threaded Faraday suits, utilized the correct crystal waveguides, and maintained the bonded grounding grids that the intelligence commanded. They didn't control it. It was telling them how to survive and get the job done. They behaved like disciplined technicians, not conquerors. The moment they stepped out of line or tried to hijack the system, again, going back to the golden calf, the system immediately purged them. Now, guys, since we're here, the golden calf is a very important thing. And so there's evidence that there were ark-like instruments in Egypt before Moses led the way back home. And there's even a sarcophagus in I think it's a Great Pyramid. They never found a tomb in it, but it's large and it's the exact size to fit the ark's description in, and it's in water. The top of it isn't, but it's in a pool of water. If you look it up, look up the sarcophagus, in Israel, in water. And when you're dealing with high energy, you better again have a good ground, and there's nothing better than having groundwater touching the sides of that box if it contains a high energetic component. Anyway, now we see Moses is out there. He's leading the people. He tells them, then remember, this is important. Before they left Egypt, the Egyptians gave them a lot of gold and a lot of jewels and a lot of crystal. Moses had the blueprint of what was about to happen. He had the crystals. He had the blueprint on how to make everything, the grounding systems, the shielding of the uniforms. He had all of that. And so he led them through, and then he got down to the mountain. He was going to go up there, and so he did. He came back down, and those tablets, more than likely, I don't know exactly how, but we've talked about this etching. And it makes it pretty much, you're not just going to scribble through a crystal and wipe out the memory on it. But anyway, he busted those tablets. Why? Listen to me, let's get technical just a moment. When he left Egypt, he had all the things he needed to build the devices. He told the people to be cool, he'd be back a couple days. What did he find when he came back? See, when they left, they had pure gold. And every time you change it and all, it changes a little bit, but they had made them a bronze calf with horns. And if you understand, going back to the Egyptians and really the Sumerians and all, that was a big energy deal to them. That was also a symbol. And when you talk about Moses, he mentioned that there were many among the people that came with him that were not of the tribes. He knew there were spies there. And more than likely, as they started to grumble while he was up on the mountain, they took all the gold that was meant for the blueprint and made a calf, a big one, on the ground as a grounding rod. Then the two horns acted like that, and that's into the symbology going back for a long time. In other words, the people in the group knew what was going on. Guys, it's a mystery to us because so much information has been lost, it's coming back. It's a mystery to us, but back then it wasn't. It was technical, it was electronics, it was information, electrical warfare, whatever you want to call it. They understood it. And so the people that came out of Egypt with them that were not part of the tribes understood it too. They were probably put there for a reason, to prevent what was going to happen from happening. Well, Moses was really upset about them using that gold for his blueprints, for something to ground out the energy that was surrounding the mountain. Why? Because what was parked on top of it. And so Moses made them grind it up. Now, if you look at how they etched stuff, that may have been one of the grinding methods. It may not have been just beating it with a hammer anyway. And they had to consume it. The tribes, you had to be bona fide tribe. And they consumed that gold. And it became a record. Also, Moses told the scouts to go out and to kill everybody that wasn't in the tribe. Now, if you had any type of instrument at all and your bloodstream was full of gold, you'd be highly detectable, wouldn't you? And the gold would be hidden, wouldn't it? And so you got the scouts going out. You remember the verse in the Bible about God's talking about angels go out with the weapons of mass destruction? That wasn't a statement made up by Powell. That's in the Old Testament. So they had stuff. Anyway, they would easily detect with whatever scanner or whatever shamar they had, someone full of gold. And if you better have it or you're not going to make it very long. And they killed a lot of people. And Moses eliminated the spy network from within. Then they reclaimed the gold, you know how, and they went back to the blueprint. So there was a battle at the bottom of the mountain to stop what Noah was going to do. He just needed a little more information from the top to finish the blueprint. He come down and all his plans are ruined. Moses was pretty powerful. And they call him Thutmose a lot of places, again of the emerald, etched tablets, or Thothmoses. But look at what they were doing. Again, we're talking about the golden calf in the dirt, and it was big. It was a grounding rod because of the energy coming off that mountain, and Moses would not be able to complete the task. Now, guys, before you run out of the room and call me completely crazy, let me back up what I'm telling you with a little bit of information and research that's come out. There's a company called Meru, M-E-R-U Foundation, M-E-R-U Foundation. And they have mathematically mapped out the entire Hebrew alphabet, and it's generated by taking a simple asymmetrical 3D spiral vortex called a torus knot and rotating it to different precise angles. The two-dimensional letters are just the shadows cast by the 3D shape. And as you turn that spiral vortex in the light where you're getting a different shadow, guys, it will, and stop it at certain locations, it will give you all 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet in that shadow 2D context. Now guys, I keep talking about frequency and how important it is, and many things they say are really created by frequencies. Now guys, we've gone through quite a bit here, but we've got 12 stones, different crystals. They're etched in a code that basically, I guess you'd call it telecommunicates with you, but I would say it would be a higher form of quantum entanglement. Anyway, which is another word for quantum inductance, which happens instantly. It's not a speed. It's not the speed of light. It's instant. It just happens. What one happens to one happens to the other test object, and most of it's really biomolecular. It's very on a small scale, but again, with enough power, that could change. But if you look at the what's called the rabbinic literature, such as the Talmud Sota 48b they're using in this, says that the method used to engrave these ultra-hard gemstones is described with an exact technical protocol. The reason I'm going back here for a minute is because we got the same crystals, or the same color crystals at the 12 gates of the returning temple, the new temple. Anyway, it says they engraved these ultra-hard gemstones, and it's described with an exact technical protocol. The names were first traced onto the stones with a special ink, and then a mysterious high-energy tool called a shamir was passed over the ink lines to permanently engrave them. Again, think about from all the tablets that are in crystal. It'd be hard to engrave into that. The text explicitly notes that no metal chisel or physical blade was allowed to touch the stones, and a remarkable physical anomaly occurred. The letters were deeply engraved, yet no stone particles or dust were removed during the process. Now think about that. Again, it was laser etched, it wasn't magic, it was technical. And because so much of that was lost, and it's being rediscovered bits and pieces, and some people, like we've talked about, got pretty good pieces, and they learned how to develop deadly weapons and some really high-tech stuff that's very useful. But all of that information is starting to come out more and more now. So let's go to the temple for a moment. You got the same color crystals, 4 on each side. Now again, the people mistakenly call it a cube. It never describes that in the word. Never. That's a man's term because of they leaving out. If it's a cube, you have to give the 4 sides. And they don't give the top of it. They give you a base model, square basically, then it rises up about 100 or 1,500 miles according to the biblical translation of the numbers. 1,500 miles, which means that the tip of it is in space. So they give you the base, and they give you the height of the 4 walls, but they never give you the dimensions of the flat ceiling of a cube, do they know? Because it's a pyramid. And that's where the ancients built pyramids. You remember how many civilizations around the planet, going from Mexico, the Mayans and all that, where they talk about their buildings, or they're copying what they saw the space gods in. Now you know where the design of the pyramid comes from? But on each 4 sides of that pyramid, no top, and it's perfectly designed, balanced, not to be some metaphysical design, because if you put a cube that size straight up, it physically could not support the weight. If you built the pyramid straight up that height with 4, it wouldn't support itself. This thing's laid out perfectly. They copied the design that they had seen in the ancient times, in the very beginning. That's where they come from. And you see different replications of it in every nation. Anyway, because that laser etched gate, crystal gate, one of the 12, any of the 12, will resonate with you only if you're a member of the 12 tribes. Just the same as it wouldn't let anybody else inside the temple. You're going to have that same thing happening. And again, that's kind of, separating the wheat and the tares. We'll see how that works out. But think about it. It's going to be a technology we're dealing with that works just like the crystals and the semiconductors and the computers and the AI now, or it's a technical thing. The knowledge is ancient, but the new Silicon Highway is technical. That now the ancient intelligence has a roadway. It has a pathway to move around. And that ancient intelligence more than likely was stored in that ark. Again, for thousands of years, guys, people, armies have searched for that ark to be, again, have the most massive military weapon on the planet. And that goes I got to do it one more time. Goes back to Skinwalker. You see them aggravate what's in the mesa. It's got a 2,000-foot shield. But the military, they will kind of keep an eye on it, and other people, I don't know if it's all military or not, but you can't really tell. They say it is. They don't fly right over it. They don't get in that 2,000-foot zone, and there's a flight area there where there's not a lot of traffic. I think it's for a reason. But it goes back to that. The 1964 expedition, had to get out of there. Robert Bigelow left in a hurry because he was losing men. They were getting sick. His wife died of cancer, and he wanted no more part of it. Now what we're seeing, whoever's watching it, is staying back away from it at a distance. They can watch everything. They can use their monitors to probably see the same thing that the crew there at Skinwalker's doing, but they know the energy is inside this thing. And that's why I say it's like the ark in a way, because they're going to have to carefully approach it, very carefully. I mentioned that if the skin of the semiconductor shields ever hits sunlight, that 2,000-mile boundary of the shield is going to expand up into space. Anyway, that just reminds me again of how careful you have to be with this type of ancient technology. You understand what I'm saying? So I didn't want to draw this out much further, but guys, when we're going to get deeper into it, because no one's going to fully understand it all until it happens. But when you start thinking about the relationship of the 12 tribes, now 10 of the tribes basically went over the Caucasus Mountains because of persecution and wars and things like that. And that's why they call 10 tribes Caucasians. Now, I'm not saying that's any special race or anything else. And that was just that group. That's how they got the name. They crossed the Caucasian Mountains. And the 12 tribes were scattered. You understand what I'm saying? And what we're seeing with the information embedded in the crystals in the chest that will also be in those gates of the new temple is that DNA information of who you are. Are you a fallen? Did someone manipulate your DNA? Has something happened? In other words, will there be trouble, or the people that come through the gate, will it be a peaceful situation? What do you think? What do you think it's going to be? So all of this is tying together with that little bit of information, guys. And so it opens your mind, and now you'll probably think about it and start thinking, maybe that old crazy dude has a little bit going on some of this information. And if you do, then it's going to open your mind into, and you'll see it happen to you. It probably already has. Certain thoughts sticking in your head until you figure it out. Now, how exactly are they going to do that? You see what I mean? But that opens you up. It changes your entire, basically your vibration, because you're turning off from some of the noise and looking back into the ancient past when you study that. It's preparing you. I'm not talking about anything evil. I'm talking about technology that's our Father stored in the crystals the original creator, El Elyon, for times like these. And we're starting to see it happen. And if you start digging also, guys, and again, I've always enjoyed studying, so that helps me. But right now, if you something about it you don't understand, then find out. Dig a little bit deeper. And as you do that, you'll open more and more doors to what you're seeing. And you'll start seeing the pieces come together. Again, we've gone from the priest of the Levitical priesthood with their frequency-controlled, laser-etched breastplates in a grounded suit so that the ark didn't zap them to death. We went from that to modern technology through all the way up to the crystals of the new temple and the gates. And what I'm pointing out, guys, it's a small world and it can be very simple. Once you get past the history that we've seen, and a lot of that history, guys, was written well after the fact, okay? And through the floods and the devastations and the overthrows, technology was lost. It was buried. It was hidden. Why? To keep man from destroying the world. And we're right back at that point. Look at the couple videos I've done just on the drought situation, water situation. Look at the wars. We're back at that point. Our Father has a way to let us know. And if the information's available to you, look it up. And guys, it doesn't put you in a state of fright. It's a calming thing to me because it makes sense. You can get past all the debris and the noise and look at how our Father works. Again, not supernatural. It is, because the word means more natural. I'm going to get out of here, guys. We got some more good, probably 2 or 3 more good videos on this topic that I'm trying to line up. If you can't put them all into one because it would become more confusing than what I've already done to you, and to myself also, by the way. Anyway, guys, you watch it, we watch it. Think about what I'm telling you. Look at where the information's coming from all the different directions, and you'll see that it's starting to connect. Again, our Father stepping in before man destroys the planet. How does he do it? What did he say? My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Right? He's sending knowledge out now if you know how to dig for it. And you guys have been watching us, again, 15 going on 16 years now, and it's been a path we've all went down, from CERN to what we're seeing now, and going back into history. And all of that's coming back around. Guys, think about it. The first Levitical priesthood, the breastplates, and the etched crystals coming to the end of this earth age through the crystal gates. And guys, I mentioned thousands of years they've searched for the ark, but the book of Revelation clearly tells us where it's at. It's in heaven with our Father. Think about that. It was taken away because man could not control it again. Now, certain events happened to where those jewels on those breastplates, they quit lighting up. That died. Something happened. It was removed. It's in heaven. So what do you think is going to be sitting in that new temple when it comes back? Remember, what does the verse say? Somebody look it up in Revelation. They find the ark there. And what would be controlling those crystal gates? Checking your pedigree. They don't want any fallen in there. I'm not sure what the requirements will be, but that's what it looks like the technology will be. And you can't say this is a Judah or Jew thing, because Judah was only one of the 12 tribes. And there will be, what did it say? Thousands selected from each tribe that are sealed by the 4 angels just before all of this happens. And you're sealed because of knowledge. They're showing you the truth. I'm not one of those angels. I can't do it like that. But when they come, they're going to be showing you the truth, so when it all comes down, you can see through it like glass and know exactly what you got to do. But again, that ark is in heaven. Man could no longer contain it. And read about it when people started looking for the ark, guys. The Levitical crystals stopped operating. You had wars, and it was supposedly hidden far beneath Jerusalem. It was supposedly put in an African church. Guys, people can't handle this thing. It wouldn't, I mean, you'd have to have it in an atomic bunker. This thing is in space, not on the earth. It will return because they say they found it. In Revelation, read it. And it is if you want to look very technical at it, it's almost like a computer chip controlling what's going on in that level. But again, I don't know why men keep looking for that, unless there's maybe more than one ark. And I have heard there are different nations in those days that had similar technology. And we're hearing one of those. But again, guys, it's a heads up. You be safe, and may our Father bless you all. Heads up.